So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Temari. So let's start the series. Disbelief filled those cerulean hues as Naruto looked up at his best friend and comrade, telling him to do everything he could to save Sakura and flee because he didn't want to lose another important friend. They were fighting at Uchiha Sasuke on a tree branch in the forest outside of Kanawagakure. But those words had given him inspiration or perhaps a full realization of the situation. Everyone was doing their best to fight this battle, to protect everything and everyone that they held dear in their hearts. He stood up with a quiet set of determination and confidence, scoffed slightly, and then looked up towards the other bearer of a demonic presence, Gaara. As soon as he finished speaking, a shocked Sasuke would look at his friend in utter shock. Was Naruto really considering going back up to try and hold his own against that psychopath again? I thought he was strong was the first part of his speech, full of this newly acquired determination as his fists began to clench at his sides in an attempt to control his emotions. Is Naruto insane? Sasuke could not possibly risk losing Sakura and his best friend because Naruto believed he was prepared to fight. That is, until he heard the rest of the ninja's statement and realized that the determination burning brightly in his eyes was actually a rage of blue rather than red and orange dancing in the line of his Sharingan. At first, I thought he was strong because he fought only for himself and for love of himself, but I was wrong because being strong doesn't mean fighting for yourself. It's giving your all to protect something or someone important. Then and only then do we have the strength to do anything, Naruto said, returning his thoughts to the story the red-haired man had told him in that hospital room. It infuriated him to think that he allowed someone who thought that being alive was only confirmed by killing others to frighten him. Was he scared of someone who was just like him? He was Uzumaki Naruto, the Hokage who had outshined all the others. At first, I thought we were just alike, that is, until I realized something in your words, Sasuke. A fox-like grin would be flashed towards the male as he glanced towards him. Knowing well that his friend was relying on the cursed seal rather than his own abilities right now for strength. When you fight to protect something, you're fighting past your own limits. And like Gaara, I have had no one look at me with any human decency except Iruka-sensei and Kakashi-sensei. My childhood was something that will haunt me until the day I die. But, unlike me, you had a family. For a split second, Gaara tensed as he debated that thought momentarily when the words had left Uzumaki's mouth and was about to protest to them until he was cut off. It doesn't matter what your father did, what about your teammates? They're your family too, right? And you just knocked your own sister out of the way just to get your high off killing someone? Naruto's anger was beginning to rise even more than it had initially as he glanced towards the side from the corner of his eye, viewing the sand kunoichi that was a silent spectator to the events. Sasuke had never seen the boy so determined to fight someone, so wound up to finish a battle with the intent to kill. He knew better than anyone that Naruto couldn't kill the thing, the demon that stood in their way. Nothing I say will stop him now, and damn it, I expended too much chakra using this seal as a backup. I can't stop Naruto even if I tried to move, Sasuke said to himself as he fell back to his feet, looking up to see Naruto's fist swirling with chakra in response to his anger. He felt the boy was about to do something more to amaze him, even if he didn't want to admit it. This fight was now in Naruto's hands. She tensed, remembering the times she spent growing up with Gaara and the murderous intent her sibling harbored since he was a child. She was able to control his emotions better than most. But was this her and her family's fault? Or was the Uzumaki dunce right to assume that Gaara did have family that cared? At the same time, the sand kunoichi that sought refuge towards the bottom half of the surrounding trees would have briefly met those eyes, causing her to flinch. They appeared to be confirming his statement. How would she feel if anything were to miraculously kill or nearly kill her baby brother, even though she was more afraid of him than anything else? Uzumaki Naruto? No matter, he still can't stop Gaara. Temari thought, unable to take her eyes off those clear pools of blue. She had to find a way to divert her attention from the altering revelational speech, and she would have done so if Naruto had simply stopped talking at that moment. Temari was a little uneasy about this mental development or debate that was circling around in her head. Stopping, he grinned as he let go of his clenched fists and looked from the Shikaku's sister's vessel to Gaara himself. I never had a family. I don't even know what it's like to have the thought of a sister or a brother's affection because I was always alone. I was outcast and despised, and my existence seemed to only bring pain. But you simply knocked your sister back and probably would have killed her, and the rest of the sand ninjas came into our home and tried to destroy it, he said. I am Uzumaki Naruto. I have no one to protect or love, but because of that I'll protect everyone. As he said to the world, thoughts are forming in the very core of all witnesses' hearts and minds. Eyes from all directions would come to rest on the boy. Sasuke could only blink before smirking slightly, his head lowering to the side as he mumbled something towards the blonde. Show off. Temari stood there unmoved by this statement until it finally hit her. I'm part of everyone too. Gaara could only smirk, those aquamarine hues staring hungrily at the new resolve Uzumaki held, because that would make it all the sweeter when he tasted his blood. But the Shikaka vessel was caught off guard when he saw the hand seals the boy was using, saying his Kaga Bushin no Jutsu, so what if he makes a few clones Uzumaki, they won't be able to save you. Gaara could only speculate as to how incorrect a few clones were estimated because all of a sudden a set of thousands of Narutos started to occupy the treetops in every corner that the ninjas could have hoped to occupy. And then, Nani? Sasuke could only gape, having never in his life witnessed such a large-scale reproduction carried out so effortlessly. Who was this child in front of him? Naruto couldn't have done it. He couldn't have made such progress in just a month, could he? Yet, he could only conclude that he was crazy to think it was all true after seeing the Naruto 2000 hit combo. Temari stared in shock as Naruto attacked her brother and even caused him harm. For the first time in her life, she witnessed the bloodlust in her brother's eyes, even at a great distance for her own safety, reach a new level of desire. He found that blonde-haired idiot, though she admits he was more skilled than he appeared to be, a worthy enough challenge for the true form of the Shikaku. This was something that had previously only been accomplished by the Uchiha, but even he couldn't have hurt Gaara more than a small flesh wound at the time. He released at the true form of that, the demon inside of Gaara. As she observed the continuous battle between her brother and Naruto, the frog boss himself, supported by a summoning jutsu, she thought, we're all dead. Where could the most disappointing ninja in the world have learnt to do that, much alone had any chance of defeating Gaara? Temari couldn't believe the determination she saw and the accomplishment of what she thought was an impossible feat, the defeat of her little brother and the demon within him. The battle cry for his opponent's name made her cling to the tree she was stationed in, trying to ignore the ecstatic Uzumaki Naruto. Was Gaara also one of the people he wanted to protect? Everyone had been watching Naruto as he ran up the head of the Shikaka beast, successfully waking the sleeping boy and disabling the true strength of the demonized raccoon. He refused to accept any kind of defeat and was grateful that the frog boss had made him his official subordinate because without it, he would not have been able to land this strike in the first place. They're all watching me now, like they did then, he said, as flashbacks of the previous moments quickly entered his mind and field of vision. Naruto started to form the hand seals for his Kagabushin no Jutsu after declaring that he would protect everyone because he had no one else. He was expecting a good number, but even he was surprised by the thousands of complete shadow replications he had created. However, this was not the time to celebrate his achievement. He immediately charged the mentally ill Gaara, counting every single Naruto that was visible, and they attacked him with a series of punches and kicks that he dubbed the Naruto 2000 hit combo, knocking the boy back and preventing him from using his sand. At that point, he had to keep track, even though the attack's taste wasn't the best. The 1,000 years of pain which Kakashi had inflicted on him during the bell test was accompanied by the tag that exploded, HH. However, nothing seemed to happen for a good minute after Naruto had hit the spot directly beneath the tail. After blowing both Gaara and himself back, Gaara was suffering from the loss of sand that supported his demonic qualities. Gaara was starting to enjoy this battle even more than his fight with the Uchiha because Naruto seemed to be full of surprises that kept his confirmation for existence burning with renewed vigor after each attack. He hadn't anticipated that he would have to use the full transformation in this destruction plan started by his country, but it was worth it to see how Uzumaki would react. At least that's how he justified having his body serve as the starting point for a rising raccoon made of pure sand that would occupy a destructive amount of the forested area. Naruto didn't anticipate this at first, but he was prepared to roll with the punches as he smirked and smeared blood onto his fingers. Now, I'll get to show off my new move. Sasuke will be jealous, he said. I have to save Sakura-chan, safeguard Sasuke, and even that girl, Temari or whatever she is called, the Sand Lady, so I don't have time for that. After saying summoning technique and paying the blood price for the jutsu, Naruto stood smugly on top of the boss frog's head, gazing across at Gaara, who was mounted within but on top of the Shikaku's head. He quickly saw that the frog boss tongue was wrapped around him, shielding him from the sand outside his body. However, what about the sand that was beginning to get to him from underneath? That was the whole of his brief memory. That dumb fox, what do I do? Crap. Terrible crap. Naruto didn't have time to reconsider, so he asked the Kyuubi to give him some of his chakra. After all, the stronger demon would also perish if Naruto did. From this point on, the rest is fairly obvious. Naruto's mindset and will changed and defeated Gaara, who was also severely exhausted and bruised during the battle. Both were retrieved by their respective teammates, and although the battle was over, the thoughts that remained in its wake were not. As they made their way through the trees, Temari was on Kankuro's other side, carrying Gaara from under his shoulders. All she could see or recognize was that Naruto had defeated her brother and dispelled the Shikaka transformation, and that they had a final fight on top of the trees, during which both of them were temporarily rendered unconscious. She and her brother discovered their sibling beaten and scared by the creeping blonde, and she was scared that Gaara had lost. Naturally, the kunoichi kept this information to herself until she heard the one line that would change her life forever. Apart from Naruto's promise to protect everyone, Temari Kankuro, I'm sorry, following that struggle. Their brother had expressed regret to them. The only thing that mattered at the moment was bringing Gaara to safety. She could thank Uzumaki later. She imagined that anything they said had changed Gaara's personality and that losing to the world's most inconceivable ninja might have been another cause. After around 2.5 years, an extremely bored boy would be sitting in the shinobi village of Konohagakure, also known as the Hidden Leaf Village, eating his 14th bowl of ramen from the Ichiraka ramen stand. Was it good? The elderly man behind the counter asked, already working on his favorite customer's 15th bowl of miso pork ramen. Those rich blue hues would look up immediately from the bowl, giving the blonde ninja an innocent taste, and he would respond enthusiastically, yeah. More ramen. Uzumaki Naruto, the loudest ninja in the Hidden Leaf Village, was having a great start to the day. Normally, when nothing happened, he gets bored and a little agitated, but knowing that he would be called upon to finish his A-rank mission later in the day kept him cheerful. Before Naruto could think further about the hazy mission that Kakashi-sensei had previously told him about, another bowl of ramen was placed in front of him as he turned to thoroughly destroy the unwary food. The proprietor of the Ichiraka ramen stand could only passively shake his head and smile. Well, that's our #1 best customer for you. Tsunade was referring to a packet in the Godame Hokage's office that contained detailed information on a mission request document. She would sigh and turn to lie back in her chair in the hopes of getting a drink and getting rid of the paperwork. It wasn't that she didn't like her job, but the paperwork was terrible. Tsunade would just smirk when her assistant Shizun casually entered her office and threw her the packet, saying, "Tell me what it says, Shizun. What else need I do before the covert mission Kakashi-sensei mentioned begins?" I wonder? Naruto decided to check on Sakura-chan and see how she was doing, but at that moment he decided to run off. With a poof of a smirk, a jounin stood in front of him. "Yo!" Naruto stopped immediately, jumping back a little at the sudden appearance, but he could only reply, "Kakashi-sensei." The boy would be walking down the busy streets of the village. The cold stares on him by most of the village were mostly ignored because he had discovered that he now had people who cared. Under his mask, the gray-haired jounin would smirk. No one could see it clearly, but the way his eye moved suggested that he was at least trying to smile, right? The younger ninja smirked and moved his finger directly beneath his nose in a cocky gesture, saying, "Hello Naruto, I assume that you're ready to hear about your mission?" "You bet, Kakashi-sensei." "So, what exactly is this mission about?" The older male smirked beneath his mask, pretending to be unaware of the specifics of this incident as he guided his pupil toward the tower of the requested Hokage. He obeyed his teacher's instructions to the letter, and when he entered the Kanawagakure's Hokage's office, he did what he felt was necessary. He obey-chan. Tsunade twitched and growled in response, saying, "I told you Tio, stop calling me that." Naruto merely grinned before shrugging. "Anyway, Oba-chan, what's this A-rank mission you have for the future Hokage?" She sighed, observing his eagerness, and smirking slightly as Tsunade decided to play on Naruto's ego for a moment. Tsunade deliberately emphasized the last word to capture the younger ninja's full attention. "Well, Naruto-kun, before I tell you what the mission details, let me explain to you why you're the best fit for this job and why you'll be working alone." He was reliable for missions requiring teamwork, but Naruto rarely had to consider performing a solo mission at the level of genin, even with the act that he could probably be considered jounin level already. Instead, he could only gaze at her with curiosity, his eyes turning into slants as he contemplated why he would be sent on a solo mission, knowing that he performed best with Sakura-chan and Kakashi-sensei. "Well, Oba-chan, spill it already. Why am I the best fit for this mission besides the fact I'm the #1 ninja in the village?" Kakashi, the silent onlooker, interrupted Naruto's remark at this point. "The #1 loudest and surprising ninja, to be sure," the blonde said with a simple sneer, folding his arms across his chest and sticking his head up in the air. Yeah, so I've been told," Tsunade said, suppressing a laugh before recalling the information she was going to share with Naruto. Tsunade paused for a moment to see if the boy could grasp the fact that, during the time of the third Hokage, our current allies from Suna, mainly their current Kazekage Gaara, you were able to defeat and in turn alter his way of proving his existence. It is in this fact that Naruto-kun, after the mission to retrieve Gaara, the friendship between the two of you was acknowledged in the eyes of current witness parties from both sides. The boy did, after all, have exponential growth in the company of that pervert Jiraiya. The boy would pause to look at his older sibling-like figure before giving her a serious thought. Obviously, whatever this mission was, it had to do with his friendship with Gaara. Therefore, he could assume he might have to go to the hidden village of sand. Tsunade-bachan, since basically what you're telling me revolves around Gaara, I guess that means that this super A-rank mission is a request from the Kazekage himself? Naruto would look at the Hokage with a hint of curiosity, or perhaps a total lack of understanding, as a hand would move to stroke his chin momentarily. However, Tsunade did not immediately respond to our favorite ninja. Instead, Kakashi said, "Well, it seems even Naruto has learned to state the obvious. Of course, this attempt to irritate Naruto was unsuccessful, but it was not as successful as it may have been 2.5 years ago. What? I do just fine stating things, Kakashi-sensei. Tsunade started. Yes, this is a direct request from the current Kazekage and be met to the letter since he was so vehement on this arrangement, and Naruto was immediately drawn to it because of one simple fact. Gaara wasn't passionate about anything that he could ever tell. Sometimes it was still too good not to pass up a chance to embarrass or degrade their younger affiliate. He acknowledged that his friend was improving his social skills and acceptance, but to be so fervent about enlisting Naruto in a mission? Those cerulean hues would seem to widen in apparent surprise that Gaara's name and any word associated with passion or emotions in general could fit into the same sentence. So, Gaara wants me to do something for him. Okay, well, I never let any of my precious people down, so I promise to do it no matter what it takes. His trademark fox-like smirk would pleasantly dart his face as he spoke those words, giving him a childlike but endearing appearance. Tsunade wanted to hear those words with her own smirk and mental check. She had no idea when she started using the Kuin honorific instead of her more affectionate term, brat. But it was entertaining to play on his ego. As a sign of good relations between Sand and Leaf, we needed to send someone to live in Suna and assist the Kazekage directly for about a year or so, and as you guessed, he chose no one other than his dearest friend, Naruto-kun, she said. And maybe because we've arranged a sort of surprise to ensure two unsuspecting people's happiness, while maintaining good relations. Hey, I'm good, she said. Having seen the desired response from his former pupil and having completed his own personal mission, the silent Jounin turned to vanish in a poof, grinning. Well, kid, good luck, you're gonna need it, he said. Around the time of that one thought, the young blonde's mouth was slowly beginning to close after his jaw dropped sharply. He was expected to leave Konoha, the village that had become his home and his future residence of power once he became Hokage, for a year. Kama-bachan, are you serious? Naruto mused to himself. I can't do this. No, I can't just leave everyone for another year. I just can't, before suddenly hearing a pretty familiar and obnoxious voice. Since you said that you would do whatever it takes for your precious people, Kit, you are at a loss. We aren't breaking our word, are we? Knowing that his vessel would commit to this regardless, the Kyuubi wore a horribly smug look. Who knows? You might even have fun in Suna. Stop talking, Kitsune team. I never break my word, baka. However, I recently returned from a training trip with Jiraiya, and we have yet to locate Sasuke. Naruto was suddenly taken by a newly formed despair, for if he had stayed in Konohagakure for a further year, wouldn't Sasuke have ended up becoming Orochimaru's vessel? It kills him to think about the Uchiha boy becoming Orochimaru's vessel, Tsunade said, observing the boy's visibly depressed appearance and giving him a knowing smirk with a slight flicker in those red hues. If there's a chance to bring back Sasuke by going to Sand, then I'm definitely going. Tsunade could only smile before dismissing him, telling him to go get ready for this departure. All right, Naruto thought as he packed his things into a pack. I should probably fill my frog wallet and see if someone can pay the old man for the ramen I usually eat while I'm away, before bidding everyone farewell. The Kyuubi's words would reverberate from the depths of Naruto's thoughts just as he had started to approve the scheme. Well, Kit, maybe you should do everything mentioned above, but maybe you should give your details a little more thought. You might be missing some things. Yes, and what precisely could that be, you dim-witted fox one? When the Kyuubi questioned Naruto, he started to carefully re-examine his plan but found nothing wrong. PSSHTT, I don't see anything missing or overlooked at all, you baka Kitsune. Well, for starters, Kit, you're going to the hidden village of Sand and you're packing nothing but ramen and a ridiculous amount of orange and black jumpsuits. It's a desert area, Kit, you need to dress accordingly. I'm sure you need more of your ninja weapons and perhaps other things of your interests as well. The Kyuubi would have said to the blonde shinobi in awe if he hadn't accepted his ceiling within the boy in Naruto as an extension of himself. Aw, that means I have to go shopping now. Naruto muttered, hating that the Baka Kitsune was correct as he considered the phrases the Kyuubi had taught him in his head and noticed that his traveling pack was empty of anything but ramen packages and black-orange jumpsuits. It was around 5 that afternoon when Naruto finished all the errands he needed to run before his mission started. After taking out enough money from the bank, the teenager bought clothes, kunai, explosive tags, a soldier pill or two, a medical kit on the pretext that he should learn how to treat his comrades' wounds, and a sketch pad for his newly discovered artistic talent. He had also persuaded Sakura to take money out of his bank account and buy 15 bowls of ramen a day. Great, said an overly happy Uzumaki as he strutted to his apartment to finish packing. Well, that was his intention, at least until he saw a note on his door telling him to go to the Hokage's tower ASAP. In other places, a purely attractive kunoichi would be spotted standing in front of the Hokage and her personal attendant, Shizen. Her hair had the golden charm of pure desert sand, and the lavender kimono accentuated her fair complexion. The young woman could be easily recognized by her rough smirk and a forehead protector that resembled a necklace or bandana worn around her neck, which bore the sand insignia. As she patiently awaited a response, Tsunade would turn to face the younger kunoichi and ask, "Ah, Temari? I was informed that you'd be coming to pick up the little package for your brother?" Temari would simply nod after bowing respectfully to the Hokage of Kanawagakure. My work as the liaison between our two villages made me the ideal target to pick up Naruto. My brother would not allow anyone else this mission, she said. Temari blinked slightly as she heard a voice next to the Hokage's ask a simple question. How are things with you and Shikamaru? Those silver hues would move to rest on Shizen as her arms folded over her chest, thinking about how many times she'd be asked this question and how many times she'd hate her answer, there is nothing with Shikamaru. Even though it was true that it was just easier for her to pick up and escort Naruto to the hidden village of sand. Shizen would frown briefly when she realized she had brought up a topic that had probably already been discussed, but she was still agitated for the Sannin. She nodded and looked at Tsunade with a small smile as the Sannin chose to ask Temari a few questions. Tsunade started by asking, "So then, Temari, what do you think of Naruto?" "Why do you ask, Hokage-sama?" the calm young woman said, raising a brow and suppressing a rising flush because the inquiry was so unexpected that she could not conceal her surprise at its source. Naruto, meanwhile, had just gotten past 2 annoying NBU members who were acting rudely toward him. True, they usually treat him with respect, especially now, but some people still completely rejected the Kyuubi's vessel. After all, Jiraiya was training him to become the person he would need to be later in life, so a single Rasengan was enough to make them both think. A few moments after all of this, he made his way to the Hokage's office, where it was quiet as he opened the door seconds after a statement that showed no particular interest in the mail. His blue eyes were drawn to a fairly attractive young woman with a trim figure and curves before Tsunade could greet him. His face blushed slightly as he wondered who the lovely woman was until he noticed a familiar face, hair, and forehead protector. "Temari?" he asked, and was met with a simple nod and a small wave. "Konnichiwa, Naruto," he said. Temari's legs appeared to just wrap around the male's waist as her body arched, staring at him with a hard-drawn breath and blushing, while Naruto's face was planted along her chest as his arms held her body pinned underneath hers. The boy ran up to give the older kunoichi a hug but appeared to trip on his feet, effectively tackling Temari as he fell. Pervert. Although the idea crossed her mind, neither Temari nor Naruto had made the decision to leave their rather awkward position because, in reality, they both enjoyed their sexual positions. That is, until Tsunade and Shizune's suppressed laughter inspired Naruto to stand up and offer Temari his hand in support, saying, "Temari, I'm really sorry. I was trying to give you a hug and I tripped and I'm sorry." Knowing that it was an accident and that he didn't mean anything wicked, Naruto blushed violently as he helped her up. Oh my god, how he hoped she didn't take it that way or he would die. At that moment, the Kyuubi chose to meddle in his thoughts. "Well, Kit, I never thought you had the strength to pursue her in that manner. I suppose you were simply lusting for her a little too much. You just needed to pin her down and see how she felt." "Maybe you can," Naruto snarled. "Shut up, you perverted fox," in response to the Kyuubi's obscene remarks regarding Temari's physique. His face flushed redder as he considered them, then paused. "I mean," he said. Temari looked at him as he helped her up, and the contrite expression in his eyes led her to believe that he was not acting pervertishly, but rather that he had stumbled on his own feet. She sighed, wondering why she hadn't pushed him away sooner, and was ready to write this off as just another minor accident, but when he said something about a perverted fox, Temari realized that the Kyuubi was sealed inside of him. And maybe it was encouraging him in a perverse way. With a ferocious determination to murder, she pushed the unfortunate boy's fist against the wall of the Hokage's office and snarled his name, Naruto. "Pervert," she said. "I doubt you'll be leaving to escort Naruto to Suna today, so I'll arrange a hotel for you to stay in until you both depart tomorrow," Tsunade would say, looking down at him with a slight sigh. About an hour and a half later, when our friendliest ninja heard this, he simply said, "New. She can stay at my place. I have a guest room that hasn't been used before, and I'd feel bad if Temari had to go sleep at a hotel because I got knocked out for him." That stupid fox blushed and sighed. Tsunade was about to suggest that Temari stay at Naruto next, but it appeared that he got ahead of her, which was better for her own personal agenda. She looked at the Sannin, smiled, and asked her, "Temari, how do you feel on this?" as soon as the kunoichi didn't make an immediate comment expressing disapproval. Good. Now get going," Tsunade said. In another location, Kazekage Gaara would be in his office going over a document that had been sent to him by Konoha a week before. He just enjoyed going over it occasionally. "Greetings, Kazekage-sama, about the details of Naruto's stay in Suna. I'd like to highlight some future hopes by extending his week-long visit to that of a year's detail. And perhaps if you accept this request, we can make a little wager, If you win, we'll allow you to make Naruto a permanent Sannin as you requested." However, curious to see how this works out for himself, Gaara found himself staring at the page while he continued to skim the remaining details. The idea of integrating his best friend and only friend into his village as a ninja was more than enough to win the Kazekage's approval. Hokage-sama requests strange ideals. Temari had time to reflect after the Hokage's sudden dismissal, and she had started to wonder in private why she didn't protest to spending the night at Naruto's place. Perhaps, she thought, with his perversion aside, it's because he's trustworthy. Despite the slow fights with Gaara, Temari hardly ever trusted anyone, but he did save her brother, sort of. The Sannin stopped when her unofficial guide exclaimed, "AHA," with great pleasure. Now that he was a host and would be hosting a visitor for the night for the first time in his life, Naruto grinned. When he stopped in front of his apartment at around 6:25 p.m., it was still too early to think about going to bed. This caused the ninja to let out a very animated AHA. "Okay," Naruto thought as he opened the door and moved aside to let Temari in first. "Hey, since I have a guest here, that means I can finally cook for someone too." Naturally, this thinking gave him a fox-like smile right away, and our beloved and only Kyuubi naturally commented a few times. "Well, Kit, are you certain that wouldn't have a catastrophic effect on her health?" Behind a roar of laughter, Kyuubi was quite impressed that he had arrived at that conclusion on his own. With no pun meant, Naruto gave a mental growl before responding to his inner demon, saying, "Shut up, you baka kitsune, I can cook just fine now and you know it." I'm still upset with you for putting me into problems with Temari earlier, so either say something important or keep quiet. Well, Kit, I didn't do anything your own body and mind didn't, and that's letting you know you're attracted to her. And hey, with age comes a wonderful experience, Kit, QB said with a sigh before grinning as innocently as he the greater demon could, more like an evil grin. Sometimes he had just hated the fox, but in some way these strange arguments were evidence of their awkwardly stated bond. Naruto could have sworn he heard someone else's voice as he turned to see Temari standing at his door. Coming in, Naruto, she asked him with a raised brow. QB won the conversation at that moment when he was suddenly overcome by a furious flush. Maybe he's not completely hopeless, the kunoichi thought as she walked into the living room of his apartment with a bit of forced shock. True, there were empty ramen packets scattered towards a door that she assumed led to his room, but Temari just assumed that the worst of the ramen trash could be found behind that door. She turned around to see that the blonde-haired boy was still standing outside, and she moved to stand at the doorway about the same time he turned to enter. The startled jump in reproach was priceless, leaving her lips open and her words to part from them. Coming in, Naruto? The analytic female folded her arms over her chest and said, Did you forget I was here already, Naruto? Temari scowled at the idea of her host forgetting her. Not that she cared. But you do, echoing a small part of her mind that hadn't been heard in years. She assumed that he was lost in thought or perhaps arguing with the QB within him. I was always just tolerated as Gaara's sister, so one boy forgetting my presence doesn't mean anything, Temari would continue to argue with her conscious mind. Indeed, but isn't it heartbreaking that the one boy genuinely wanted to meet Temari and become friends with her? He's just a friend. So I supposed it would bother me a little bit, Temari groaned, looking up to see Naruto's shape moving around in terror. Did I miss something? She thought, unable to believe the possibilities her own mind was giving her. You've missed all he said and more, her thinking said with a faint chuckle. In the back of his mind, surprisingly without the QB's influence, he started to think that he would never be able to forget about her if he could. Of course, this was justified by the fact that he couldn't forget any of his friends by his own rights. He blushed when Temari asked him that question because she believed he had forgotten about her. But in reality, he was talking about her with the QB. No, Temari-chan, I couldn't forget you. The shinobi simply went without questioning how he said that, knowing it to be true. With his outburst, QB infiltrated Naruto's mind and implanted the memory of the boy feeling Temari's body beneath his own. Chan, Kit? See, I told you that you were just luscious hunting for some slender, rough attitude and fine sand ninja, QB said. It would seem my little Kit is trying to grow up just a little. He knows he likes what he sees and feels. When he realized that damned Erosenin and Fox were starting to corrupt his head, he started to run around in a panic. She really is pretty, he said. And I was sort of comfortable, he said. In addition, he did truly relish their unplanned situation. But did that imply that he was betraying Sakura's affection? The youngster was starting to become even more confused, and if it weren't for the hand that grabbed his shoulder, he might have gone into a condition of mental instability. Nanny? Naruto would turn around, a little startled by the movement, until he turned to face a familiar kunoichi who was just grinning at him. A warm tone would settle on his cheeks as he found himself staring at Temari, speechless, unable to say a word. Man, she's pretty, Temari would smirk as she took her finger and raised it to rest beneath his chin. So you think I'm pretty, Naruto? Well, at least he had assumed his thoughts were just what they were. So you think I'm pretty, Naruto? Though she didn't hint at it, the kunoichi was quite pleased by his innocent compliment as opposed to certain statements used to talk about her appearance. She was smirking wildly as she removed her finger from underneath Naruto's chin. He thinks I'm pretty. The kunoichi's first instinct was to blush at his compliment, but she forced herself not to because she was Temari of the Sand and her emotions weren't an accessory she possessed. I thought you said he was only a friend, so why should it matter to you? Since the Sannin was unable to respond with a respectable retort right away, he chose to politely, if you can call it that, respond with an aggressive shut up. Why should it matter if Naruto found her attractive or not? After all, it was only Naruto, so what he said didn't matter, did it? However, he is significant, isn't he? Hee. As her inner voice continued to speak, Temari mentally responded, I don't care if you are my mind, if you don't shut up, it's just nice to be complimented by a boy without the bull that usually follows, that's all. Nodding quickly to confirm what she had just said. It's a little bold, Temari, but are you implying that you would like to praise Naruto's body the way others do yours? This was the surprising response from what she had just realized was her own deviant mind. Nah, Nanny. Besides, he's only 15 and I won't say something like that about Naruto. Temari was troubled to discover that she was a pervert despite her cool-headed, sensible, and generally lethal mindset. When you were enjoying the sensation of him on top of you, Temari, did it really matter that he was 15 years old? Because there was some embarrassing truth to this comment, the kunoichi blushed violently. However, she was fortunate to have Naruto's speech interrupt her and divert her focus from the strange ideas racing through her head. Well, YYYOUSE, see, he said shakily as he tried to respond. Why, yeah, of course I think you're pretty, twitching his fingers shyly as if Hinata's behavior had been ingrained in him. You're not pretty, you're beautiful, he thought, trying to regain some composure that had been more than lost, it was non-existent. At this point, Naruto started to notice that her complexion was a little, well, red. Temari-chan, are you okay? You're all red and stuffs, he said, his eyes narrowing to slits as she appeared to look at him with a raised brow. Ha! Was all Temari could manage to say as she calmed herself now that her mind was focused. Smirking at his concern, she said, yeah, I'm fine, but maybe we could find something to eat, and why did you start calling me Temari-chan, eh? Food would be the best diversion, given that she was actually a little hungry and wasn't chan only associated with Sakura. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted when he heard the question that followed Temari's statement. He honestly had to consider when he started adding the chan honorific to her name. He simply shrugged, indicating that he had no idea when this phenomenon began. I dunno, but now you get to be the first to taste my wonderful cooking, Temari-chan, he said, acknowledging that he had no idea when it began. Oh God. Those eyes widened and locked onto the happy figure of an eager Naruto. But Temari could only stand in embarrassment at the idea of Naruto preparing dinner. With my luck, she thought after trying in vain to tell him she would cook instead. Death should be quick, but Temari sighed as she sat down on a nearby couch, wondering how he managed to persuade her to give in to what she perceived as an accident waiting to happen. It really must have meant a lot to him, she said. Rewind to 5 minutes before, after the relative calm she experienced, the voice within her head started to attack her. Nanny, your wonderful cooking? Temari watched as Naruto nodded to her and then smiled his signature smile. Naruto, maybe I should cook instead, Temari said. You are aware of your curiosity. Nah, it's okay, Temari-chan, and besides you're actually my first guest ever, so I want to be a good host. The genin blinked and then shook his head passionately, rejecting her proposal. At that moment, the Kyuubi inside Naruto started to speak up following his own relative quiet moment, saying, she doesn't think you can do it, kid. Temari started to worry in private that she would have to eat his food if she couldn't persuade Naruto to change his mind. Nevertheless, it was reassuring to know that he would make this temporary arrangement agreeable by offering to prepare dinner. The host doesn't always have to cook, Naruto, and I probably have more culinary expertise than you do, Temari said, crossing her arms and folding them over her chest as if to enforce that knowledge. She then made the quick decision to listen to her inner voice. It's Naruto, anything he cooks is bound to be hazardous to my health. Then I promise to make the best meal you've ever tasted, and I don't go back on my word. It's my way of the ninja, you know. Naruto sighed sadly as Temari questioned his cooking skills by saying she'd be a better cook. She really doesn't think I can do it, he said, but many people had questioned his abilities and proved them wrong. He really wants to cook for you. And do you really want to make your friend sad by being his first and only guest to deny his cooking, Temari? Temari sighed, staring into the depths of Naruto's blue eyes and noticing the sadness hidden behind them. The kunoichi managed to fake a smirk with her thin lips, giving him a wink of sorts in an attempt to cheer him up. Just be sure it doesn't taste like ramen, she said. Flashbacks and he wanted to cook for me. Despite her dread, Temari was comparatively content. Despite being the most independent person there was, she couldn't hope or trust either of her brothers to offer to cook, so it felt good to have someone interested in looking after her for once. The loudest ninja in Konoha was in his kitchen making dinner for himself and Temari in the meantime. He was going to show Temari that he could cook, and he never broke his word. Naruto promised to make the best dinner she had ever tasted, and he never did. This was his nindo, his way of the ninja. Since the home's chef said that dinner would be ready in about an hour and a half, Temari found herself having to wait. She didn't have many things to organize, but she was curious about the condition of this unused room. Temari moved down the hallway to the door next to the one where a pathway of ramen packages marked Naruto's room was located. She opened the door to reveal the room she would be staying in right now, saying, it's actually not bad. Closing the door behind her, allowing the Sannin to get a better view as she entered it completely. It was impossible to believe that Naruto took such good care of this room, and as she laid down her traveling pack, she started to wonder, why does he take so good care of this room and this one only? The walls were white, like most of the rooms in this building, but they weren't dingy or cracked. It was almost like this room had just been painted. A bed was found near the window, and there were curtains with a well and a checkered design of black and red. There was also a fairly large closet. Around that time, the kunoichi found something, a small journal of sorts, next to the closet door frame. The cover was leather-bound and appeared to be in fairly good shape. Normally, ninja wouldn't give such items much thought because they usually contain nothing that she would be interested in reading, but she was curious to learn more about Naruto's thoughts and feelings because he was, after all, the most surprising ninja and no one could ever truly say they knew how he felt or thought. Temari blinked. Something wasn't quite right. This wasn't how she usually acted. On the other hand, Temari, when have you had an opportunity to simply be yourself? And what does that have to do with me being tempted uncharacteristically to read this journal, which I'm pretty sure should not be opened under any circumstances by his? Temari was starting to despise the inner voice that was inside her head because it had recently only caused her to be irritated. This time, though, it had a point, but it wasn't one that she planned to focus on for the time being. You've always been the tough one, haven't you, Temari? I wonder, you've always felt alone even though you've had your brothers, correct? Well, you know Naruto's always been alone, so maybe seeing how someone else truly is might make you appreciate who you really are a bit more? Okay, forget that. We both know you want to see what he wrote because we want to know how he thinks, Temari said. This is pointless. It's simply a book. I have no reason to look into Naruto's private matters. Besides, his life is none of my business. Temari had claimed that it was none of her business, but the kunoichi's curiosity had overcome her, not to mention that a tiny voice in the back of her mind was constantly bugging her, telling her that Naruto had left his journal in that room by accident years ago and that she had never considered looking for it. The opening line, Uzumaki Naruto, what you don't see, made her cringe inwardly. How different could he be in reality than what he displayed to everyone? How different could he be from what she and everyone else in the world knew about him? Naruto was working hard in the kitchen to prepare the ideal dinner for his guests to enjoy. Although the blonde ninja was occasionally a fool, he had developed some culinary skills during his travels with Jiraiya. Of course, he wasn't flawless, and the true reason he told her that they would have to wait an hour and a half for dinner was because he was certain he would make a mistake somewhere before doing it perfectly. HK. I forgot how to properly blend the rice and wine without letting too much alcohol remain in the mixture. He was on the verge of terror, but then he grinned. His trump card was that QB always remembered everything so he could extract the information from that obstinate fox. Okay, Yubaka Kitsune. Help me out here. What the hell did Erosenin say about this when we were in the country of Wave? At least he had hoped it would be that simple. The QB watched Naruto's mental image from behind his cage, laughing at the horrified expression the boy was giving him. Like Kakashi and Tsunade before him today, he couldn't pass up the opportunity to embarrass or enrage his vessel. And what if I refused to help you out, kid? After all, you did say that you would make the best meal she ever tasted. That doesn't include me, kid. Naruto snarled as he left the rice/wine mixture alone for the time being and proceeded to cook some spiced chicken, venting his rage with the kitsune that was imprisoned inside his body. Baka Kitsune, he said, I thought you protected your own, and doesn't that mean protecting them from mistakes too? Gah! Damn you, you stupid fox! It seemed to him that his friend, in some ways, was determined to be a jerk when Naruto needed his assistance. Well, Kit, first you use your chakra to separate the alcohol from the flavor, afterwards you slowly begin to dilute what you've separated with an additional dish that you've already prepared, or maybe some lemon juice. But then again, if you're really Lussus's company tonight, Kit, maybe you should give her a massage. You know you liked how she felt, he said, smiling with demonic malice. It was invaluable, and the greater demon would never grow weary of it as long as he was alive. Ignoring the Kitsune team's statement, Naruto decided to start following the advice while the seasoned chicken was cooking. However, his thoughts kept drifting to a certain kunoichi. Naruto blushed as he could not stop listening to the perverted remarks that the QB started to insert into his mind. He eventually sighed. Those silverish colors would start to scan the journal's paper, carefully and rapidly reading every word that came into her vision. As soon as the opening statements were deciphered, she began to envision a completely different Naruto than the one she thought she knew sufficiently well. First journal entry. Naruto Uzumaki, I don't know why everyone hates me so much, but they all look at me as if I was nothing more than a monster. I just wanted anyone, to look at me the way a parent did their children, and I tried and acted my best while staying at the orphanage. Yet no one ever wanted to adopt me. They only looked at me with those eyes that were more frightening than anything I can ever remember. They were like ice, no colder than that, staring at me with an intent to kill if they could, and I think I would have felt better if they did. I hated being alive, waking up every day trying to prove that I could be someone a parent could love, and just being rejected by every individual that even dared to glance at me. The adults never let their children play with me, and in time even they began to despise me like their parents did. I was alone and hated, and I didn't know why, so I just cried. I'll never admit it to anyone, but back then I cried every night before I went to sleep, and in the morning when I knew I'd wake up just to have people leave me in the road, curse me, and sometimes they even decided to beat me up. I just wanted them to love me, to acknowledge my existence, to let me know that they knew that I was alive and they accepted that fact. I started to think that the only reason I was here was so that people would despise me, and perhaps that was how they were going to recognize my existence. No one cared to teach me right from wrong, even though I had a pretty good sense of it for the longest time. So I decided that if they were going to ignore the fact that I was a needy child, I would become the one they couldn't take their eyes off of, the one they would have to think about constantly. I'll admit that I wasn't proud at first, but the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. Then Iruka-sensei was telling us about the Hokage, the most revered person in the village, and even though he thought I wasn't listening, I made a promise to myself that I would one day become the Hokage. What is the Hokage? The Hokage is the most powerful ninja in the village, the leader, and the most revered person in all of Konohagakure. He or she is a person who will fight for everyone in the village with their life and command the loyalty of every individual who lives in their presence. Of course, I didn't understand the true meaning of that until I learned more about the old man third Hokage because he was the one who taught me what it meant to be a Hokage. I made a promise to myself that I would succeed him, but I knew that there would be no shortcuts to achieving that goal, and even then I knew that there would be no simple routes to becoming Hokage. In retrospect, I realized that I was never really that good at the academy and that I failed 3 times, which was the first in Konohagakure's history. However, I was not alone during those times because I was consumed by hatred and loneliness. My best friend and greatest rival, Uchiha Sasuke, and I were like one and the same, but everyone loved him and they all hated me. That's okay though, because I promised myself that I would become Hokage, so it was acceptable for them to despise me. I was never able to master the replication technique during my time at the academy. However, one of my teachers informed me that anyone who learned a technique from the Forbidden Scroll would pass automatically, so I tried my hardest to master it. I practiced endlessly until I finally mastered the Shadow Clone Replication and Kagabushin no Jutsu. It was then that Irika-sensei discovered me and I realized that the reason everyone hated me so much was because I was on the verge of becoming the Kyuubi, allowing myself to be consumed by rage and go and slaughter everyone I could. Until Irika-sensei said that I was accepted. Irika-sensei gave me the strength to forgive everyone and go on so that I could become the next Hokage. The first person to accept me was someone I thought disliked me the most. And it was then that I realized he was being so hard on me because he cared about me. Team 7's journal entry number 2, Irika-sensei, told me that I would be leaving his tutor age and working in a 3-man cell headed by a Jounin, which is the highest level of ninja one could achieve aside from becoming Hokage. I decided to go get ready to meet my new team after Irika-sensei treated me to some ramen, but on the way to my apartment, those icy daggers continued to watch me with such cruelty, and villagers started, not realizing that I'm not the Kyuubi, questioning the wisdom of allowing me to even become a genin. However, what happened after that doesn't matter, because it hurts me to think about it and makes me angry. The other team members were unexpected. Though, as I was matched with the 2 individuals I had always secretly desired to be on a team with, Haruno Sakura, my crush, and Uchiha Sasuke, my fiercest rival and current best friend. When Temari processed those words, she started to feel very uneasy. She wasn't sure why, because it was well known that the blonde shinobi had feelings for the pink-haired kunoichi. Seems like someone's getting a bit jealous at Temari? She asked herself, ignoring the voice in her head that continued to exist. Sasuke was the best ninja at school, so I was glad to be paired with him because I really wanted to make friends with the only person I knew who understood what it was like to be alone. However, it seemed like he hated me, so I pretended to hate him too, even though he is everything I admire. Sakura, on the other hand, was the smartest genin of our year and the prettiest to me. So I told myself that I would stop at nothing to win her affection and keep her safe. But even she detested me. Even after that rejection, I convinced myself that Sakura would like me if I could show her that I was a good man. However, even as I write these words, I knew that she would always be Sasuke's. Reality hurts, and when I realized that, I felt as though my heart, if I had one at all, was broken and fragmented because I loved someone who would never love me back. However, I'll move on. That's another story for another time. After we waited for a bit and discovered that Kakashi-sensei was consistently late, he decided to give us the bell test, which I didn't quite pass, and even performed this extremely painful move on me. Temari started reading about Naruto's bell test and this extremely painful move, and she started to mentally note that she should kill Kakashi if she ever had the chance. Maybe she would kill the pink-headed twit while she was at it because she was a constant source of pain for Naruto to worry about, but she continued reading anyhow. Our first mission is coming up shortly, and perhaps it will be an opportunity for me to prove myself and perhaps distract me from these strange desert-related nightmares I've been having. Aha! It's finally finished. Naruto grinned widely as he looked over the table full of the food he had prepared for supper and the section that was just ramen for him. Since he was doing this for Temari, he hoped she would enjoy it. I've got to give it to you, kid. It's not bad, but if I hadn't remembered everything, you would have been way over your head. Hey, but you're definitely in the game for some Lolo loving tonight. Kyubi couldn't resist the chance to compliment and taunt the boy, and she relished every wasted word. Furiously, Naruto grumbled, flushed, and swore, "You blasted kitsune. Stop talking. I'm not attempting to sneak into her trousers, you baka pervert. So please leave me alone." So, Kit, you're swinging to the left. Hell no. You're baka kitsune and I'm not gay. Naruto was genuinely tired of the Kyubi and sighed as he shut out all thoughts of criticism. He started to go to the living room to let his guest know that dinner was finished, but he stopped as soon as he walked in. "Nanny?" he asked, remembering the guest room. "Ah, maybe she went to try and get comfortable here?" he thought. Perhaps she changed into something more comfortable. "Kit? He. Stop talking, you foolish fox." He was heading to the guest room doorway when he knocked on the door. He didn't want to just walk in because she might be changing clothes, but he thought about her wearing a black slip. When he heard a crashing sound, he opened the door, assuming she might have been hurt, but instead he saw Temari on her back with his journal open on the floor next to her. "Nar Naruto-san." Temari gulped, feeling exposed and vulnerable for the first time in her life. She had been at his house as a guest, but her Jounin-ranked abilities had led her to awkwardly invade his privacy. She valued privacy, so why was it so difficult for her to avoid doing so? Temari couldn't afford to look weak, especially not in front of him now. "Naruto-san," she said, but he interrupted her. The Jounin would stand up while she looked toward his feet instead of him, then look straight up and meet his eyes. As those blue eyes narrowed on the kunoichi's physique, the boy said, "Temari-chan," in a deathly cold voice. Once more, she was interrupted in the middle of apologizing for her conduct. "Yes, Naruto-san, I apologize she said. The Reaper-like tone that had been placed there just moments earlier was completely replaced by Naruto's expression when he said, "Dinner's ready, Temari-chan, and prepare to tell me how good my wonderful cooking is." It appeared that he was now excessively energetic and could not really care less about the red-handed action of reviewing his private thoughts. Granted, what she had read was 3 years after the fact, but still, "He's not upset at me," was the simple inquiry that left Temari, for the second time in her life, in full shock as her confidence in her rugged exterior began to crumble. "You're not mad at me, Naruto-san? Oh man, you should have seen the look on your face, Temari-chan, and if you want, we can talk about what you read, but it's pretty it doesn't bother me if you want to learn something about me, I guess," Naruto said, grinning vividly, unable to control his laughter any longer. "He doesn't mind me learning about, I understand. Naruto has been by himself for a long time, so I guess it must feel wonderful to have someone interested in knowing more about him than just his confidence and smile." "Well, Naruto-kun, don't keep me waiting too long, if you know what I mean," Temari said, grinning as she approached the younger teen, who was already twitching his fingers. For the second time, she put her own self-assurance and emotional boundaries over her person. "It's finally happening, my kid will get laid, and perhaps even have a litter of his own. Just think of the blood limit your kids could have, and you'll get the rough lover you've been lusting for," but all Naruto could do was flush and look directly into her eyes with apprehensive caution. "Nanny." Temari smiled slyly, taking advantage of the moment a little too much for Naruto's benefit. She could continue to tease the boy for hours, but she chose to pull the last trick at that moment. Naruto-kun, she said, deliberately bending forward to face Naruto and bringing their lips close to each other. Gosh, could that dumb fox be correct for once? Your wonderful cooking, don't keep me waiting, I am hungry you know, Temari said in her head as her inner critic appeared to be haunting her once more. When did you begin referring to him as Naruto-san, and more importantly, when did Naruto-kun exist? After I finally began to understand just how alone he feels, because I feel it too, just not as strong as Naruto and maybe in a completely different sense, aside from the fact that I respect him, Temari responded, snarling in her mind. Correct, you desire him, I guess she doesn't mean it like that then, Naruto said, letting out a mental sigh as he heard her words. I apologize, Kit. I suppose you will only be able to enjoy her with your eyes at that point, though I must admit that's not too bad either. As soon as Naruto moved his lips to speak, he discovered that he had met hers by pure accident. To his relief, however, Temari's eager return saved his awkward kiss, and she returned the kiss, and he was enjoying it. The close distance between their lips caused him to blush deeply, his face burning with the intensity of 1,000 white suns. Noted in the lawsuit from Fairly Odd Parents, and I'm waiting for it. As events transpired, a pair of eyes would be peering in from outside Naruto's guest room window. A heavy sigh was released into the night sky's passing breeze. It appeared that her opportunity to have Naruto all to herself or alone was lost, as he was occupied amusing himself with a lip lock involving a certain sand kunoichi. She simply had to have postponed it after learning that Naruto was departing. Why couldn't she have been astute and informed him right away? Goodbye then, and without the pair's knowledge, the figure vanished. Naruto, meantime, was perplexed as to why Temari had returned his kiss. And boy, was she good, but also as to why he found it so enjoyable. After all, he had lost Sakura to Sasuke years prior. So why wasn't he currently faithful to her? Come on, Kit. What is it about that girl with the pink hair that Temari doesn't have? You're enjoying her taste, aren't you? It's just amazing. In lieu of Naruto's perverted Kyuubi, Temari was lost in her own confusion and perverted inner thoughts at the same time. Why did she kiss him back? She knew it was an accident, but underneath that awkward kiss was something that understood her own desires. The answer was straightforward. Temari wanted to kiss him, and she knew he wanted the same, if not more, for her. In addition to teaching him how to improve his kissing skills, you can teach him other personal skills. Both Naruto and Temari were gasping for air at this point, just staring at each other with confusion written clearly over their facial features, and they blushed from the thoughts that were racing through their heads. In Naruto's case, they also pulled away from one another as they looked towards the opposing figure with a hint of regret visible in their eyes. Yes, she tastes good, he could pick up a lot of skills, but I love Sakura-chan, don't I? Has he already moved on from that Uchiha fanatic? She is one of my most valued individuals. Could I truly come to love him? Could he come to love me? I wish we had kissed for longer. I wish I was kissing him right now. The more each ninja thought, the more complicated things were getting. They both sighed, and when their breathing stabilized, they realized that they had one thought in common. This is unclear.